Good evening, everyone. My name is Courtney Kirk. I am the project manager of the Somerville Junction construction project. And I'm going to get us started this evening. On behalf of Mayor Ballantyne, I welcome you to this construction kickoff neighborhood meeting on August 14th, 2023. I'm joined with Ward 5 Councilor Gomez Mouakad. So let's get started. This neighborhood meeting will be conducted via remote participation and compliance with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 as amended by Governor Healy in 2023. Just as a reminder for GoToWebinar, you should have a little gray box. It might be closed when you started. If you hit the little arrow, you should see the buttons for muting, unmuting, raising your hands, and then a bar that you can submit questions to me. Also, I uploaded, there's a bar that says handouts. I loaded this evening's slides in that area. So if you would like to look at the PDF on your own while we're going through the presentation, that is available for you to use. So tonight's agenda, we're going to do some quick introductions. I'm going to go over some construction logistics, talk about tree removals, and then allow time for questions and answers. So, Councilor, would you like to say a few words this evening?
Yeah, it's Courtney. I simply want to thank your department for hosting this meeting. I know I put in this request because there's first, as I just was mentioning to you, the bike path just opened and people are very anxious about losing access to it. And I know that sometimes with construction, there are going to have to be some disruptions. So I just want folks to understand what is the process, what the intent is. I also know this is a park that's very much used by the community. It's a de facto dog park as well. So I just want the community to be informed that obviously this area, it's going to be under construction and it's not going to be accessible. And we also will be removing some trees, but adding trees. So it's just important that I want everybody to be as informed as possible, but I'm ecstatic that we are adding another green space in our community right here in Ward 5. I feel very fortunate to have this, and I'll let you get started. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to go off camera to save some bandwidth. All right. So for those of you that have not attended one of the community meetings for the design portion of Somerville Junction Park, here are some ways that you can keep in touch with me and keep in touch with news about the project. So we do have a Summer Voice page for this project, and that's where I upload the documents, the drawings, I'll upload the meetings, the meeting recordings. And since we'll be kicking off construction, another way that you can keep up to date with every construction project in the city is to go to our city's construction webpage. I would also encourage you to sign up to receive the weekly city construction newsletter. This project will be listed in that Friday email, so you can know what's coming up the following week. And you can always email me at my city email address, ckirk@somervillema.gov. So if this is your first time attending a meeting, thank you so much. We've had 4 meetings to go through the design process for this project, and now we are officially kicking off construction. So this meeting will be focused on the construction logistics, and we will not be talking about design feedback. That portion of the community feedback closed after public meeting number 3. So as a reminder, this is the design that you all assisted with providing design feedback on. for the renovation of Somerville Junction Park. This is the design that was put out to bid to get invitations, bid requests from contractors so that we could hire a contractor to build this project. But the design is portioned into 3 basic components. The oasis on the left that would be expanding and renovating the existing lawn area of Somerville Junction Park. The alley that includes a whole lot of trees. And then the gateway, which is more of a plaza along the central street side of the park. One component of this design is also to make the community path area between where the Lowell little connector joins Junction Park, sort of straightening out that connection and smoothing the route all the way through the park as one navigates between Central Streets and Lowell Streets. So this is a great time to have this meeting because starting this week, our contractor that we hired, their name is UEL Contractors. They will be starting to mobilize on the park site this week. The basic schedule that the project will work on is that the construction will be divided in 2 phases. Phase 1 that will roughly occur between August 21st and December 4th. And then phase 2, which will be from December 4th of this year, 2023 through June 29th of 2024. And as always, the schedule is subject to change. We can't control when we have intense rains or crazy weather and contractors are unable to do work outside. So anytime there's a situation like that, the project schedule extends. Also, just depending on all construction projects, sometimes they start digging and find surprises. Sometimes that can add time to the schedule, but roughly the contractor is committed to delivering the new Junction Park basically by next summer. So really excited to get this park going and have a new park next year. So construction mobilization, what does that mean? So basically it means that the existing Junction Park and the parking lot will be closing. The contractors will be moving on to the site. They'll be bringing materials like construction fencing, erosion control, and other ways to secure the site so they can bring their machinery and any materials on site, and it will be safe for you and safe for the contractors. And one thing that I know you're probably all very anxious to know more about is the status of the community path. So during this community path, or during this construction mobilization time period, the community path will be open as it is right now, all day, every day. So as they're getting set up, everyone can continue to use the site as you are using now. And roughly, here's a diagram of roughly where the contractors will be working. So the route along the northern edge of the park will be available for any users of the community path. So phase 1, basically sort of at the end of August is when the contractors will be starting this phase 1 work. In the beginning, what it means is that they'll be doing some demolition. They'll be removing some phase 1 trees. They'll be transplanting or digging up a lot of the existing large shrubs on site and preparing them so that they can replant them in new places later. And they will be building an on-site community path detour route. They'll be doing underground utility work and basically doing some pavement installation, seat wall and retaining wall installation, and probably a little bit of furniture going in. a diagram of this. So the red is the area that the contractor will be closed off, and they will be building the yellow dashed line. That will be the on-site community path detour route. Basically, this has to happen because the existing pavement that made up the edge of Somerville Junction Park and the existing parking lot, we want to give everyone a brand new paving surface and smooth out that transition from the Lowell Street side access onto the community path, the new community path. So once the new on-site detour route is in place, the contractors will be working on installing the pavement of the final community path route. So we are committed to keeping a route on site open all through construction. I think that there might be a couple of small interruption moments where we might have a larger detour route. But once that work is known and we can schedule it, we'll have a very large blast alerting everyone that there may be a different route that people have to take, but we really want to try to use our land of the park to be able to keep people moving in the same basic direction that you all have been able to move through over the past couple months. So as a reminder, this phase one, basically what the contractors will be working on is the final new condition of the community path route that traverses through Somerville Junction Park. So phase two construction will roughly start in December and then follow through the 2024 construction season. And basically, the contractors will sort of flip where they're working and then remove the phase two trees, which those are primarily the trees that are all along the property line or up against the property, close to the property line, that are sort of entwined with the existing fence. The fence is going to be replaced, so a lot of those trees, we can't save them because they're growing through the fence. They'll be doing more utility work. They'll be doing some of the earthwork, making sure all the grades are right, and then installing the rest of the pavement, fencing, furnishings. And usually the very last thing that gets installed will be all of the plantings. Roughly, it will look like this. So the green dashed line, that will be the final condition of the community path, so that users, again, will still be able to maintain traversing through the park while the construction on the rest of the site is happening. And again, all of these dates, as they become very real, we'll send out an announcement for when, instead of using the temporary community path route, that people will be using the final community path route. And during this phase two work, the contractors will be building redoing the lawn, installing the hammock area, all of the plants and trees. This is a project that is installing 100% native plants with a pollinator focus. The plaza area in the gateway section will be complete, and then basically we'll be able to open the whole park once phase two is complete. It's really exciting. I think this is going to be a huge transformation from having a parking lot and a small park to a very large linear park. So to cover our tree removals, if anyone at this meeting has been on site, you might have noticed that there are a number of trees that have been identified with a city notice that they are going to be removed. And this meeting will serve as the information to tell you which trees are going to be removed. So we, in working with our tree warden, there are 15 trees that are really not great. They're growing in the fence, or they're in terrible shape, and they need to be removed. Those 15 trees total 135 inches DBH. We are preserving 16 trees, which total 245 inches DBH. And the project will be planting 77 new trees. And if we assume our minimum plant size is 2-inch caliper, we'll be replacing 154 inches with this project. So we always try to be very diligent about replacing more trees than they're removing. So I think we're off to a great start. The first slide here with trees 1, 2, and 3. These are the trees that will be removed in phase 1. Basically, tree 1, it's a stump with a strange leader, so it's in poor condition. We're going to remove that. The tree number 2, where that is on a slope, we are going to be moving all of the earth around in that location, and a tree wouldn't be able to survive that change in soil movement. And it's in fair condition, so we are going to remove that. And a hornbeam that is also in a location where we're moving the soil around a lot, and the tree just wouldn't survive, so we will be removing that tree. Trees 4 through 8, they are all, most of them are growing in some fashion within and within all the openings and voids of the chain link fence that goes along the park limit. And they're all Norway maples, which is an invasive species. So we're going to remove those trees. And then trees 9, 10, and 11, the same, very similar conditions. There's a fence that's pretty much attached to them, or they're invasive and just trees not in great shape. They're very weedy trees. So we're going to remove those as well. Trees 12, 13, 14, and 15, similar story. They're growing in and out of the chain link fence. Most of them are invasive, like Tree of Heaven and Norway maple. So when we do install a new fence, we are taking out the old fence, so we need to take those trees away. So the existing trees, just to come back to the site plan, there are some smaller green dots, circles. Those are the trees that we're saving that are existing. So there's 16 trees, a total 245 inches of DBH. And then the sort of grayish circles or yellow greenish circles, there's some pinkish circles. Those are all the new trees. So that totals 77 new trees that will be installed with the renovation project. So that concludes my information about kicking off the construction project, and I'm going to go through your questions. If please type them into the question bar. I'll go through them, and just as a reminder what your interface looks like, you might just have this a little gray bar. If you hit the orange button, it'll expand and you can see where there's a question bar, and you can type in your question to me and I will go through the questions. Okay, our first question: will the Woodbine Street entrance to the park be closed throughout the construction? Yes, that access to the park will be closed. If you're trying to find a connection point to the community path, you will have to access the community path from Central Street or from Lowell Street. Also, at the Woodbine Street entrance, a telephone pole currently obstructs the entrance. Will you be removing or relocating it? We're working on relocating it. If it's an Eversource pole, if there's some complications about moving it, there's this really awkward guy wire that is attached to the pole. We will be relocating or having that removed. We need to be able to have DPW drive into the park from this route, and that guy wire's in the way. So we are working on getting that taken care of. Can you clarify what you will use for a large communication blast to inform community of large detours? I'm working with our communications department. So I imagine there will be things like a robocall. If you sign up for the construction newsletter, it will be in that. I think that they have the capability of doing a concentrated email blast to people in the neighborhood. I can send letters to the butters. I think we'll have a multitude of ways that people will know about it. We'll put some signage on site ahead of time. If you keep up on the Summer Voice page, we'll announce it on there. I'm sure if you get the weekly city event emails, there will probably be a note on that. There will probably be a note on the main webpage. So I think that's along the lines of what I mean by a large communication blast. I recognize that the community path touches people that don't necessarily live right here. So we want to make sure that people are given enough warning to know that they shouldn't just ride their bike or walk through the middle of the construction area that the contractors will be working on. If there are unexpected issues that arise with community path access, the community can call in 311 to report the issue. What service level agreement does the city have with UEL on how fast UEL needs to respond to fix the issues? When there's a 311 service request that comes in, for the most part, on my past projects, 311 immediately sends me the information, and I immediately call the contractors. They should be on site most days during the construction project. If something happens at night, I will be calling them directly, and they will be attending to the issue as quickly as possible. How is contractor UEL planning to address the heavy foot bike traffic at Central Street and managing their drivers moving vehicles in and out safely? What extra safety measures are in place? So part of the on-site detour is a temporary crossing at Central Street. Their construction logistics plan, basically they'll have truck access where the community path is not going to be crossing. I don't know if you all are super familiar with park construction projects. It's not quite like a road construction project because largely the area that the contractors are working on, they'll be bringing their equipment on site, and it will probably stay on site. And the delivery of materials will happen in very short bursts. We are very cognizant of the high peak volumes of the community path users. So we are not encouraging any sort of deliveries or trucking to occur in the peak hours during the morning and evening commute. The contractor when they bid the job, they were well made aware that this path needs to be open and safe for all the users while they are working, and they are familiar with working in areas where people need to use or have public access in various locations as they're working. Is there a time limit for how long large detours for the community path will exist, such as should they be no longer than 1 week? What risk is there that could be 1 month or longer on larger temporary detours? So I know that this team, they recognize that if there's a larger detour, it might be for a couple of days, it might be for just a work time period, 7 to 7 p.m. Really, the tricky parts about interrupting community path service will be, smoothing out the pavement, the new part that we're paving, connecting it with the old parts, and doing things like striping, or when they come in and do the trees later, we might need to do a day-long detour where we install the trees that are adjacent to the new community path pavement. So we're working very hard to limit any larger detours to less than a week. If something needs to be in place for more than a week, we're working with the engineering and mobility divisions to make sure that there's protected bike facilities, so that anyone that's using a bike or other wheeled transportation will have a safe route to get between Central and Lowell Street. What signage and maps will be posted at both ends of the community path to explain current phase, to explain temporary detours? Most signage when a detour route is in place will be fairly standard transportation signs. The bright orange signs that indicate an arrow with a pedestrian or bicycle symbol to direct people. That's most commonly what will be put in place. I think to talk about the phasing, I think that's a good suggestion that we can try to put some other type of information on the site that says whether we're in phase 1 or phase 2. You may have discussed this at the beginning. Will you close the segment of the community path during construction? I did cover this. The community path will have an on-site detour route during phase 1 while they build the new pavement that you see in this plan. Once that new pavement is ready, it will open and people can use the full length of the new community path route while the contractors build the remaining part of the park, which is the area, I'm going to call it Plan South, below the community path line. Could I ask what defines a weedy tree? I would say that we typically define a weedy tree as something that is very aggressive. It produces a lot of saplings that have and seeds that tend to find their way in every nook and cranny. Trees that fit that description are things like the invasive Norway maple, the invasive tree of heaven. There's a number of catalpas that are along this edge, or the southern property edge of this park, and they produce a number of seeds that are very happy to just get going. When you have that many seeds, oftentimes the saplings, when they grow and they're left unmanaged, will sort of grow together, and you might have 4 or 5 trunks that then all of a sudden merge or find their way growing in those voids of the chain link fence. So really, when we say weedy, it means that they are likely to take on shapes and twists and turns that make them a little more susceptible to not having a long life and just look weedy. Are any of the 77 new trees going to be conifers? As the design stands, none of the new 77 trees are going to be conifers that I am aware of. However, there are, I think, 2 or 3 pines along the western edge of the property that we will be maintaining. Will the Woodbine Center Street entrance exist when the project is complete? Yes, the Woodbine Center Street entrance, sort of as it exists today, will be open. We're making it a little bit wider. We're installing some amenities there, like a drinking fountain or a new drinking fountain. I think there's a really old drinking fountain there right now, some bike parking, and you'll be able to either go straight to the community path, or you can start to take a turn into the oasis area of the park. Are you going to try and preserve the shad bush, or are you going to replace it in kind? So the shad bush that is slated for removal, we're just changing the grading there. So the roots would be exposed, and it really wouldn't survive with the new design. There are a number of new shad bushes that are going to be installed. Michael, I can share the planting plans with you if you would like to take a look at them. I know how to get in touch with you. What will the replacement fences look like, and what measures will be taken to preserve security and privacy for the neighboring properties? During the design work, the replacement fence is going to be chain link fence. Any of the properties that have an existing wood privacy fence, those are staying in place, and we're just putting our chain link fence next to it. A part of the planting strategy, as I said, there are a number of very large shrubs. I think a majority of them are viburnums. They're going to be transplanted, and a lot of them will be replanted along the fence edge of this project, which they'll provide a lot of screening. Also, there's a consistent vegetated buffer that is going to be installed along that fence line. So it will be a planting buffer that will help with some of the privacy concerns and keep people that are walking through the park off of any of the edges close to people's properties. And I believe anyone who is abutting the project, there should have been a set of plans and some documentation that was sent during the design to alert any of the abutters about the fence work. There is highly invasive Japanese knotweed growing along the CPX just upstream of Junction Park. Will there be a plan to prevent it from spreading into Junction Park? I cannot control invasive plants. Anything upstream, that is the responsibility of the maintenance agreement that the city has with the GLX contractors. They are supposed to be removing and keeping any exotic invasives at bay so that they don't spread. It's a public park. If someone cuts some knotweed and decides to throw it in Junction Park, there's not much I can do about it if it becomes a new colony in Junction. We will have a horticultural maintenance plan for this project where the pollinator plant beds will be cared for by an outside contractor, and DPW will be responsible for typical things like mowing a lawn, snow removal, trash removal, something like the drinking fountain breaks, they'll fix it. So hopefully, I think having a horticulturally sensitive maintenance team working on this project, they will be well aware of the baby invasives that might be trying to move into this park and be able to remove them. What safety measures will you be adding at the gateway to the crossing at Central Street? With the increased use of the path, the hazard crossing Central will be exacerbated. The community path crossings throughout the whole route of the project are identical. So we are not changing anything that has been installed at any of the other community path construction or community path crossings. So at Central Street, much like the opposite side, there will be a stop sign for community path users, and then a painted crosswalk and accessible curb ramps for people to cross the street. Will any of the park area be dedicated to someone like a name of the park? This park has previously been dedicated Somerville Junction Park, so it will continue to be named Somerville Junction Park. Will you be removing all the trees from the side of the parking lot or going into the properties from the Albion Street side? Will you be removing the fence before all the trees since some are growing through it? Not all of the trees will be removed along that property or fence line edge of the park. However, any ones that I would say that the tree removals and fence work will probably occur in a similar time frame. The contractor has scheduled that these trees would be removed at some point in December. They might just come in and take off the tops of many of them, and when they remove the chain link fencing, the rest of the stumps, it's the fencing and tree removal work will most likely occur in a similar time schedule. Is this going to shut down Woodbine and Center Streets periodically? Will it cause damage to those already heavily damaged streets? Have either of these things been considered? We will not be shutting down Woodbine and Center Streets. They are private ways. We are not planning on touching any of those roadways. At present, the visibility of the path to motorists is suboptimal. Bikers and joggers cross at significant speed and are difficult to see. Is there any plan for a slowdown on the path itself or a blinking light at the sidewalk? This is an interesting question. I would recommend that any concerns that any attendee have with the entire length of the community path and where it crosses, I would recommend that you reach out to our mobility division with your concerns as they are thinking systematically about the long route and are better equipped to answer a question like this. You can email them at transportation@somervillema.gov. Some of the trees will be removed. Some of the trees that will be removed have roots that go below neighboring parking lots and yards. Will there be work to fill in the space that is cleared out under neighboring yards and parking lots? The trees that will be removed along the fence line, if there is a possibility of destabilizing some soil, the contractor will probably just cut out as much of the tree on our property, and then the roots that would be staying in place on the adjacent property should die off. In some areas where there's a grade change, there is a granite curb that will be installed along those edges to help mitigate the transition from properties that have a higher grade to the park grade. But we will be stabilizing, trying to keep everything on neighbors' properties stable. It's this project, the fence line is actually probably about 3 to 5 feet inboard of the property lines. So many of the properties on Albion Street actually have some bonus land that's technically city property. So I think all of the removals should be well within the actual city property line limits. What hours of the day will workers be working? We tell our contractors to stick to the city noise ordinance regulations that basically state that they're able to work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we have them, their contract says that they can work Monday through Friday and Saturday by permission only. So we don't want to have them work on Saturdays. It would only be if it's really, really necessary. They don't work on any city holidays as well. Will you replace the fence completely all the way from the park to Central Street? The chain link fence will be replaced all the way from the Woodbine side of the property all the way to Central Street. Are there going to be appropriate erosion controls put in place to keep stormwater erosion runoff from going down the storm drains? Yes, the construction, the perimeter fence will have a silt bale that goes along the fence, and any area drains within the property will have a silt sack so that we ensure that any stormwater runoff, that we're catching any particles and silts and other things before the water would go anyplace else. There needs to be a stop sign for people on the path when it crosses Central Street because it's hard for drivers to see bikes coming across until the last second. Yes, there will be a stop sign at Central Street. There is one on the opposite side. This project will be providing the stop sign for people that are moving to the east. If an on-road detour is needed, can you make Albion Street two-way for bikes between Center and Central Streets while the detour is in place? That is something that we are taking into consideration. And if we have a longer detour time period, we will definitely be dedicating space for cyclists. We will keep you posted on exactly what detour route will need to be in place if a larger detour route is ever needed. Will any more signage or crosswalk markings be added to Central Street to slow car traffic? This project does not do any of the road improvements aside from we'll probably restripe the crosswalk for the community path, and then we will be rebuilding the public sidewalk on the park side along Central Street. If you would like to provide feedback for roadway concerns, please email our mobility division at transportation@somervillema.gov. There's a handful of thanks. Appreciate that. Will there be signs at the construction site pointing people who don't keep as on top of Somerville infrastructure plans as possible aware of this website to where they can find project information? Yes, so when the contractor puts up their construction fencing, we do have a very large, I think it's like 8 feet by 4 feet, sign that will go up with my contact information, who the contractor is, a picture of the plan, and I think based on some an earlier question, I think we'll ensure that we have some more wayfinding-ish type information, and I think we can also indicate what phase the project work is in. I think those were some good suggestions. I missed the very beginning, but heard mention of hammocks. What other features will the park have? Is there a drawing of the actual detailed features available other than the ones in the PDF? Yes, so there will be hammock posts. If any of you all have used Lincoln Park, there's a handful of bright green posts close to the playground that you can bring your own hammock and hook it up and hang out. So we'll be doing something very similar in this park. I'm going to put the websites and everything in the chat. And my contact information, but other features. So we're going to have some chaise lounges and picnic tables, some Adirondack chairs, lots of pollinator plants, a small amphitheater style seating area, some benches, and then a handful of picnic tables and cafe tables and chairs. We'll be upgrading the lighting. There will be 2 lookout points, so you can hang out and look at the train tracks. One that's in the Oasis, and then one that's just north of the community path that you can look out over the train tracks that will have a shade structure over it. And if you want to look for more information, the Summer Voice page, there is a section that says documents. I've uploaded the construction drawings there if you would like to look at it. There's also all the slide decks for the last meetings. Those are pretty helpful to visualize some of the spaces as well. One more question. Woodbine becomes a river that floods whenever we have experienced hard rains. This funnels construction material through the street where it clogs city drains. Are efforts going to be taken for this construction to not exacerbate this pre-existing problem? So this project, the grading, will be keeping all of our runoff within the park limits. The removal of the asphalt parking lot and converting a lot of that into plant beds, I think will help absorb some of the high intensity stormwater that's going on. I would recommend that if you have, I mean, it sounds like Woodbine has some drainage concerns. I would recommend reaching out to our engineering department. I know, I'm sure if you go, so I put the link for the construction webpage, that's run through engineering. I would recommend that the contact that is listed on that construction page, it's probably Jesse Muth, that you reach out to him with your concern. Please post a copy of these slides in a place where people can easily find them. These will be on the Summer Voice page along with a recording of this meeting. I posted the Summer Voice page in the chat. Will the community path be 12 feet wide in Junction Park? So the community path, it should be through the park. The existing path is 10 feet wide. We're transitioning it to 11 feet wide and then transitioning it to 12 feet wide. And there is I think it's a 2-foot buffer wherever we have some more passive activity going on. So anyone doing passive resting and chilling out they're not right in the community path route. So where there's the amphitheater and the plaza and a whole bunch of benches, those people have some extra room, and that's where the community path will be the widest. What precautions will be taken to mitigate sun stance and alcohol? Oh, I think that's probably substance and alcohol use in the park. Since there is no direct street access with lighting, citizens or city patrolling. The park will have a whole bunch of lights. We are upgrading all the lights. Our park hours are from sunup to sundown. It's roughly, I think it's 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. If anything's going on, I recommend people calling the police. That's what we do. However, if a lot of people are going to be using this park and using the community path, that always helps prevent people from thinking they have a secret place to hang out to do bad things. So I really think the community path route is a huge bonus to this park, which in its current, before the community path, was a very isolated park. So I think there will be a lot more people doing good things instead of people trying to come here and do bad things. If you have extra time, could you go over the design a bit more? Were there any major changes made since the final design meeting? I'm gonna look, so that's our second to last question, so I will circle back to this. Will the current plaques in the park, which detail the history of the Somerville Junction site, be included in the new park? We will be installing some new interpretive sign materials in the park, and we'll also be adding a handful of information about pollinators and the plants that we are installing. The existing plaque is not in the greatest shape. We are not saving it. We'll be installing a new plaque and other contractual grant obligation signage that we have to install. So we'll be recognizing our grant funders such as CPA, Community Preservation Act, or Community Preservation Committee. We are funding this project largely through ARPA funds, and we received a sizable state grant from the Park PARC grant program. Those will all be recognized on a new plaque. All right, so design. So I would say that this design has pretty consistently stayed very similar. Some changes that it's probably hard to tell. Probably the shape of the amphitheater area that modified slightly. We really wanted to make it more accessibly friendly. I think some of the grading at the Oasis, really trying to make sure that we're keeping our stormwater on site and that we won't have weird pockets of pooling water in the winter. We are going to be reusing some of the existing benches instead of buying some new ones so we could get our budget a little bit more in line. But largely, I think the major design components have stayed the same since the last community meeting almost a year ago. So it's really exciting when a project can take off from the beginning, and the design, just has the opportunity to get better as we get closer to releasing the construction documents. So I think everyone is really excited for this park. I was excited to see that the Boston Globe wrote about it this weekend. If you didn't see it, it's, I think, turning a parking lot into a green space. And since this is city land, we're able to plant trees along this route. So in terms of the oasis, I think in the larger community path context, this park will be an oasis and a true junction for the city. So with that, I don't see any more questions. I'm going to just double check the chat. And Councilor Gomez Mouakad, would you like to say anything before we wrap up?
No, Courtney, again, I want to thank you for hosting this meeting. And I just do ask, I think some constituents ask any information, again, it's posted on the site fence. Sometimes it's the most effective. There are quite a few immediate abutters. I ask that they clear communication. I do have one last question. Is there going to be any truck traffic coming through? I'm assuming sometimes a contractor will have to come through Center Street and Woodbine.
Our plan is to not have any truck traffic on those streets since they're private ways. And that will be using Central Street as our material entry and exit point.
Great. So no, again, I really thank you. I don't think we always do these type of meetings. And I think it's very helpful for the community to understand what's happening, especially now that I understand we're rerouting the bike path. It's good to know. And to be clear, there will be times that we might have to have, for some days, a full detour. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, I anticipate there will be moments. It's, we just can't make sure that the existing path, when someone has a asphalt machine and stuff, that, we're keeping everyone safe. So there will be times that for everyone's safety, we'll have to do a larger detour just so we can ensure all the connections. The new asphalt connects to the existing community path asphalt, and the overlook structure can get installed. And I don't know. I feel like construction projects sometimes you don't know what might come up once things get started. But the contractor really anticipates that, there will be very short time periods that a larger detour may need to be in place.
No, understood. And for everybody's understanding, sometimes you have the subcontractor, the major contractor wants to do it one way, and then the sub of the sub decides it's done a little different way. So I find that's when surprises come. But no, so again, I thank you. I think this will be an added benefit to the community. I think also having a little bit more shade in this. I just learned from you that we can't plant trees within 30 feet of the train track. So this will be one opportunity to add trees to the community path. So thank you again. And I thank the members of the community for their questions, because there's some I was going to add and they were right on the money. Or sorry, I get my expression.
Well, good. It's
my English expressions sometimes get a little confused with my Spanish one, so I apologize. So thank you so much. All right.
Yeah, and anyone can reach out to me at any time and I'll try to get you the right information. Or if you 311 will send your concern my way. But thank you all very much for attending. When I close the meeting, I'll be sure to have the slides and the recording on the Summer Voice page this week. So thank you all for attending. And again, please reach out if there was something that we didn't cover or you come up with a question later. So thank you all very, very much.